Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Pagliai of Carbondale, the official coaches show of Saluki Athletics. Now, here is the voice of the Salukis, Luke Martin.
Pagliai's Pizza is more than just a restaurant. It's a Southern Illinois tradition. With new owners Jason Atsula and SAU alumni, they continue the legacy of excellence set by our founders. Every visit to Pagliai's promises the same exceptional quality and warm, welcoming atmosphere that customers have loved for decades. Welcome back, everybody, to Inside Saluki Athletics. I am your host, Luke Martin. It's so great to have you with us. As always, we get to start off the show in really good fashion as the Salukis get a win against Austin Peay, against the Governors on Saturday night in Clarksville, and those are never easy on the road as we welcome in head coach Nick Hill to join us. Coach, thanks so much for the time. Always good to see you. And as we just described, you know, it's never easy going on the road and getting a win, and your group was able to do that in a fashion that just getting a win on the road is important.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you never know how they're going to come. I think, you know, you hear tons of coaches talk about just 1-0, find a way to win and get to the next one. And there's going to be different situations. They're never all the same. I think, you know, how we play and then how we grow from each game is going to be super important. So coming off the loss at BYU, going back on the road, not playing a real pretty first half, but staying in the game, how we closed out the first half. I think even, you know, we talked about that after the game and just, you know, situational football, you know, you talk to your team about it, and they have to own that, and, you know, situational awareness and then mastering those situations. But until you're in those moments, you know, you try to practice those as much as you can in training camp and emphasize those and team meetings and showing them clips of learning from other games that have happened, you know, but how teams close out the first half, how teams close out games. We've learned, I mean, in 9 games, and it's a constant message to our guys, like in an 8-game Missouri Valley, you got to be prepared to play in 6 or 7, you know, one-score games. So it's going to come down to possessions before the half and how do you close out games, 2 minute, can you get a stop? And then just the momentum going into halftime is just a huge thing. And so with them having the ball coming out and us being able to get a turnover off an explosive play and then getting a stop and then going and scoring, you know, right there in that middle 4, which some teams talk about a lot, you know, that was a key in the game.
And the other part of it, too, is that shows you the improvement that your team made from game 1 to game 2, where at BYU you were in a similar position. You were able to get a score right before halftime, but then unfortunately let them get in field goal position, get a field goal, and then they score on their first drive in the second half. It was really flipped what you did just 1 week later and showed really changed the momentum of that game and set yourselves up for a really strong second half.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, so we need to learn and on those experiences. We'll find ourselves in those times this weekend, you know, and the more that you can do things, the more reps you can get. Some of that has to do with who you're playing. So we just have to keep putting our head down. I think it's, you know, it's Tuesday. Whether you got to put away, you know, how good winning feels, and you get to enjoy that after the game and, you know, the bus ride home and coming in the building. But then great teams, championship-level teams, are able to turn that page, win or lose, and get back that feeling of just having a sense of urgency about yourself of, like, what is coming on Saturday, the work that needs to be put in, the respect you got to have for your opponent, and that's what we're doing.
What did you see, Coach Hill, were the biggest differences from half 1 to half 2 from DJ's perspective of really seemed like in the second half a little bit more calmed down, was able to go through his reads and his progressions just a little bit clearer?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, for DJ, I don't ever think it's a calmness thing. And, you know, playing that position, sometimes things just happen the way they're supposed to. And I know, you know, there's some throws that he wishes he had back, you know. But great, you know, even the couple to VD overthrew one. VD could probably be a little bit better in one of kind of settling in a zone. Felt like DJ was threw a great ball, but then, you know, and then the scramble drill stuff. I mean, we coach it, and practice it, but in game, even the receivers having a feel and him having a feel, those are a lot of throws that you don't get to make in practice. Full speed scramble, just made a guy miss, possibly outside the pocket, and then make that throw. And we missed a couple. And so I don't think it's a calmness thing. And then I think, gotten a good rhythm. I mean, anytime you can get your quarterback in a rhythm, you start to feel it a little bit. And that's on us, too, as coaches, of giving them some throws and getting them in that rhythm and a balance of him running the football. And us, we've got to be able to run the football to go where we want to go. And so I think there were some positives and some things that we have to build off of. I think in both games we've shown flashes of what we can be. Now it's like we've got to consistently do it. We can't have as many 3-and-outs, and we can't have as many negative plays, whether that's penalties. Really, in last Saturday's game, it was the penalties that brought us back several times. 2 holds and a personal foul just can't happen.
And the other side of it, too, is – Coach Hill, as you described, I mean, yes, DJ really getting in that rhythm in the second half. You guys were able to help him. One guy who didn't need much to help get into a rhythm was Ben Bogle defensively, and he's a guy that we touched up on actually pregame was one of the areas of, man, just his improvement from last year to this year. He was everywhere in that football game in the second half, and it's one of those things where he played so well, not to say everyone was like, man, you didn't miss Bohannon at all in the second half. But in reality, he played so well, not very many people knew you were without your best linebacker in the second half.
Yeah, and I think, Bohannon down on the sideline, obviously being hurt and not knowing what's going on with his bicep. But he needs to take a lot of pride in the Ben Bogle wouldn't be the player if it wasn't for Colin Bohannon and the maturity that he has every day, what it means to come to work and the meeting rooms and holding Ben accountable to all those things. And I mean, when you're a younger player and you can have the maturity of a veteran player showing you the way, then when it's your time, you're a much better player. And I think that's a perfect example for Ben. I mean, as far as getting in a rhythm, that word kind of gets I don't know if there's much rhythm to Bogle at all. It's one speed, it's one speed, and it is he plays the game like when you're talking to your team, like energy, effort, physicality, there's never a doubt that what you're going to get from 35. I mean, that's how he plays the game.
There are so many areas you can probably look to in terms of grading or judging to see how one side of the ball does, how one position group does. But what was so staggering to me, Coach Hill, and it was hard to follow in the moment on Saturday night because just the live stats were a little wacky and all over the place, and lots of had to get corrected after the fact. But 16 plays ran, I believe, in the fourth quarter for Austin Peay and -8 total yards. That is the tone that Coach James and the defense, et cetera, that's the tone that they want to set. I know that's obviously a hard standard to continue out throughout the week, but that game was well in doubt. In the fourth quarter, there were chances where it could have flipped the other way, and it was just like your defense said, no, we're not going to let this flip.
Yeah, that's what we talk about, closing out games, how we're going to finish. The defense in the fourth quarter, was lights out. And that's how you got to be. I mean, whenever everybody's tired, nobody feels good, it's all of those things. I mean, that's what football brings. That's part of what we sign up for. And when you have the tenacity to do that, and who's playing best in the fourth quarter, who's finishing, to watch those guys do that was great to see.
It was one of the areas what's always neat is to see guys really check off some career first. And, Schwindy finally getting his first touchdown. We'll get him on the show. Had Caden Reeves get his first sack in the game. Chris Presto got his first 2 sacks. Jamon Mathis, I believe, in there as well. Those got to be really neat moments to you because you see so many guys that develop within your program and then finally see them really get to shine at an important moment in those games like on Saturday against Austin Peay.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, Bogle and then all the guys that you just listed, high school guys that we brought here and that have developed in our program and that are reaping the rewards of that. And, from Caden being here for a while now, starting to play his best football, it's a developmental sport. People forget about that now of transfer portal, bring guys in. I mean, you gotta develop players that stay in your program, and all of those guys that you just mentioned have been a prime example and are great examples on our team of putting your head down and working, and then you'll reap the rewards of that.
I know Coach Clark really wanted more from his group up front, really challenged them last week. Did you feel they really took that challenge head on against Austin Peay on Saturday night?
Well, I think, running the football, I think those guys are still, their best game is still out there like us as a team. And so still really encouraged by those guys up front. First, like Noah. Noah came in the locker room, and I think that's the first time he's been in a winning locker room at playing a football game in 6 years. I mean, that's like that's a long time. As far as him starting a game and winning, and getting that feeling. So these guys are still getting in the groove of playing together and going, and especially Marcelo and Noah not playing for a few seasons for a while, really the first time in their college careers. And so I felt like being able to run the ball and LaShawn and JB, and then some of the things that our quarterback can do in the run game, we still got to be more consistent with that. And that's what we'll continue to work on.
One area that showed early, I know he got sidelined a little bit in the second half, but K-Lou is going to be a problem for a lot of teams in terms of just trying to keep anybody on him. The key's one, to keeping him on the field, getting him to his area. I think it's hard for him too, because last year only played him one game. So it's one of those areas, I'm sure, for him getting back into a groove of a season. But when he's out there, Coach Hill, he's going to be a massive weapon for you.
Yeah, and we've got to do a good job, and I think getting these game reps. He hasn't played a ton in both second halves of the first two games, and we've got to get that right, and he does. And so, but yeah, we've seen it here for a while from spring and fall camp, and then. We've missed on a couple. We've targeted him some, down the field, and but you got a kind of a glimpse of it there. What he can do. I think 5 catches in the first half, and but we feel good with a lot of our weapons, and so we just got to continue to build. Not one. The best offense in the country is still finding its groove with new players and finding its way. And we've got to continue to win along the way. And when we find that groove, I think that they can be really good.
I know you find out more when you go back and you watch film. It was an area that I talked about in our special teams position preview that we did throughout camp. And it's one of those areas that maybe gets overlooked a lot in terms of when you had Nick Baker, of course, one as your quarterback for so long, but also as your holder for a long time. And that exchange from snap to hold to the kick is a really important exchange. I think we've seen that already early on in the season in terms of building that chemistry within that group. Where do you see that at right now in those areas where you still communicate to them to get them to a point where that's going to be a unit that you can trust consistently? Because I've seen it in practice, Coach Hill, these are guys that they have the ability, no question, to capitalize in those moments.
Yeah, I think, the snap, hold, kick, that's number one. And so – we've had 2 hiccups really in the first 2 games. I think Ryan LaHood, he'll go back out there as our holder. Those are all great experiences for him. I'm really proud of Ryan LaHood, and it's something that I take pride in for our program of watching guys. We've got, I think there was 4 or 5 during fall camp. I made them come in front of the team that got their start working for our team. Whether it's in the filmers, we have, I think, 3 of them that were filmers their freshman year, and they wanted to try out, and we didn't let them, and we didn't have a spot, and then we brought them in spring ball, and they all traveled to BYU. They found their way not just on the team, but they found a role on the team. And then Ryan LaHood was on the equipment staff, and he was catching passes for us, and he was like the quarterback equipment guy, and he would catch passes. He was athletic, and he wanted to try out. Didn't come from a winning program in high school. We brought him in the spring. Was kind of one of those guys, never traveled or did anything. And then it's like, we're looking for a holder, and he's done a great job. So those are brand new experiences for him. You know, it's the first time he's ever traveled, and you're at BYU, and his first one's down there in that student section, and you can't hear, and it's like, here you go, you know. And it's that one position, too, that, like, nobody knows you're doing it until you mess up, you know. And so we got confidence in Ryan, and, you know, he took a little butt chewing on the sideline, I think, but then he went out and responded right after that, you know, and we hit one when we needed it, and he'll be just fine.
Well, as we look towards Incarnate Word this weekend, it was really amazing to me, Coach Hill, when you look at the history of the program. I mean, there's been times, of course, when you've been here as a player, when you've been highly ranked and you've had some really big games. Not very often, as this will be the first time where Southern's been in the top 15 and a non-conference opponent has also been ranked in the top 15. That happens a lot within league play because of how good the Missouri Valley Football Conference is, but it is a bit of a rarity to have this opportunity at home for Saluki Nation, for the fans, to have this high caliber of a game. And I don't think there's really much of an argument looking across the FCS landscape this weekend. This is the highest ranked matchup between two teams. This is going to be a really great opportunity for our fans to come in and see an Incarnate Word program that you guys played 2 years ago and know all about.
Yeah, no, these are the games that you want on your schedule. I mean, obviously, if you look around the country, you know, we had an FBS game, a Power 4 FBS game of a 2-0 BYU team at right now, and then all the non-conference opponents are either conference champion winners or ones that now are picked to win their conference this season. And so I think when you look around, you watch how, you know, Clemson plays Georgia opening game. Like they know for your team to get where it needs to go, it needs to be challenged in the non-conference. And obviously you want to have the confidence to go win these games, and playing them at home, you got to win these games. And then when it gets to the end of the season, how important those wins on your resume look in a playoff format and where you're seated and all of those things. So you have to schedule that way. If you have confidence in your program and you have high expectations from your program, then you have to schedule that way. And I think this game provides that.
The biggest differences that you can tell from when you look 2 years ago, which it's even hard to believe that there's still a good chunk of your guys on this roster that were at that game in San Antonio and played. So it's somewhat experienced. No roster term, these two teams have changed a ton. But in terms of just schematically from what you saw from Incarnate Word 2 years ago to now, how much change, if there has been a whole lot at all?
Well, yeah, new players on their team for sure, and ours. But you know, schematically, offensively, they're pretty similar. Different quarterback. I think Lindsey Scott I think he won the Walter Payton that year. You know, he was a problem. You know, skill receivers that may be a little different than these guys. These guys are equally as good, but you know, they have an offense that is consistently produces, you know, a lot of yards, a lot of points. And so, you know, the same schematic structure offensively, a little different defensively, as that defensive coordinator's with GJ at Texas State. But a lot of similarities on the plan to win as far as their program goes.
What impresses you about Calzada, their quarterback? And obviously he's a guy that when he was at Texas A&M, they were able to beat Alabama. So, I mean, he's been in a lot of big games and has been successful on college football Saturdays.
Yeah, I think the moment's not to be. It looks, I don't know him at all, but and it's hard to kind of tell, you know, on film, but he's just pretty steady. You know, he's pretty steady. He's pretty confident. You can for sure see that on tape as far as, like, he has a great grasp of the offense and where he needs to go with the ball. A team that throws the ball a lot, you know, he gets the ball out of his hands. I think last year he only took 14 snaps or sacks in 10 games, and then this year I think he's only taken one. You know, at SDSU, throwing it that many times, not getting sacked. That's a veteran quarterback. You know, not holding on to the ball. You know where the ball's supposed to go. The ball's coming out. He's a tough kid, and then he's got some weapons. He's got some weapons to throw it to.
Now, the good thing is your offense at times can go tempo and just your own rhythm. So it's not that it's out of normal when you get into practice this week and maybe your defense has to go up against tempo. But how much do you crank it up this week, just for obvious reasons that is really UIW's bread and butter in terms of their offense and how they run?
Yeah, I think, we always do a jet period every week, and then especially in training camp, and we'll go fast at times. So our defense has seen that through training camp, and there'll be days in training camp where we're going to go a lot of tempo, and because you're going to see, you got to prepare your defense too throughout training camp on the different looks that they're going to get during the season. And so, yeah, we've got to be really good. I mean, when you're playing a tempo team, when you let them start picking up first downs, they're going to go really fast. If you can create some of those negative plays and incompletions, and they're subbing, then you can slow the game down. You got to play good in all three phases of the game. And then when they do get going fast, I mean, they're going to pick up some first downs. They're going to get going. And you just can't let those explosive plays go for touchdowns. And then you've got to have great communication. And we've got to do a good job with that, coach to player, of them understanding, what are we going to, how are we going to defend this, and they've got to see it and react really quickly.
There may be, because Incarnate Word gets kind of painted, and because their offense is really good, their defense maybe doesn't get a lot of attention either. But what's impressed you about their defense when you do turn them on and watch them on film? Granted, only 2 games so far this year.
Yeah, really good player personnel on that side of the ball. And so I think, like we've talked about, like growing each game, 2 games, a lot of new players, those guys making those corrections and figuring things out, and what they like, what they don't like. That's going to be a continual work in progress, but plenty of personnel over there to be a really good team. I think obviously going to SDSU, maybe one of the best offenses last year statistically, with the guys that they have, the number 1 team in the country. There's a lot of teams that are going to give up 45 points. And so I think that, it's going to be a great challenge for us offensively going against their defense, and it should be a really good game.
Later on the show, we got Coach Griff coming on, who is right now the lone coach that's been with you every year since you've been here as a head coach, which I know that, and saying that means you two have a great relationship and you both trust each other. One thing that's always been clear to me, and I know it's going to happen when we have it later on here in the show, is just how many former players just not just like Coach Griff, how they love him, and they are so outward about it because they care that strongly about him. What is it about him that you feel so strongly about, that he's been such an important piece for you to have each and every year you've been here in Carbondale?
Yeah, I think we could talk forever about Coach Griff. Really, loyalty, foxhole guy that you want in your foxhole, tough, great family guy. Man, I'm indebted to him forever for coming. I was 30 years old and first staff, and move your family down here, and still here. I'm proud of them loving Southern Illinois like I do. Now their kids have grown up here in 9 years. They're going to look back like Southern Illinois is home. Yeah. And even their Amy's family lives here, and so she's got a great job in the Carterville community they've just become a part of. And so Coach Griff, I don't know how many coaches are out there, like full-time, maybe some guys off the field or an ops guy or something like that have been with the head coach for a long time, but there's probably not too many in FCS that say like the head coach and the position coach been together for 9 years. And so, man, he's a special guy to me.
Coach, we really appreciate the time. Most importantly, just glad that Saluki Nation gets a chance to see you all at home finally this weekend, and what should be. I know there's some rain in the forecast, but it does look like the rain's going to break away before we kick it off on Saturday night. So it should be a great night for football, and just awesome opportunity for our fans to come see you play this weekend. We appreciate the time, Coach Hill.
Yeah, excited to be at home, excited to see all those Saluki fans, and appreciate it.
We're going to take a time out. When we come back here on the show, we're going to have Jen Sewell, who's going to join us, Ryan Schwindeman, Coach Griff. We got a jam-packed show for you here on Inside Saluki Athletics, which is brought to you by our friends at Pagliai of Carbondale. Welcome everybody back to Inside Saluki Athletics, live on Tuesday all across YouTube, X, Facebook, wherever you want to find the show, you can find it. And we know our viewership is going way up right now. Ryan Schwindeman joins us, our guest from the tight end room for Saluki Football. Schwindy, welcome to the show, man. How's life so far this season for Saluki Football? And I'm sure some excitement for you coming off just a win for the team, no matter about personal accolades. Just getting back on the winning side was big on Saturday.
Yeah, just to get in that locker room and get that feeling. Coach Hill always talks about, there's only one thing that matters, and that's getting the locker room after with the dub. So, yeah, there's a lot of excitement going forward with the team for sure.
So much a year ago for you. I think back to the Austin P game last year where you scored a touchdown on the opening drive, but it was called back. And then it was like, man, there were moments last year where it seemed like you'd have an opportunity to get a play, and then something would happen to take it back for you. Now this year, you're even more cemented in that role, and what's helped, of course, is A.J. being out right now to open up those reps for you in fall camp. But what's been the biggest difference from Ryan Schwindeman just a year ago to now you right now going through this year, Ryan?
I'd probably just say experience. Got a lot of experience, especially playing under AJ. AJ's kind of been like my big brother ever since I've got here. He's taught me a lot, especially him and JG before that. So, yeah, him being out is definitely a hurt to the team, but, it's allowed some other things to happen, and we're definitely excited for him to get back.
Now, you're someone who went through a redshirt year in 2022, and then last year you really were in every game and played in significant snaps a year ago. Talk, if you can, go through your development stages, Schwindy, and how each year, from a redshirt year to last year being more of a role player to now, you're more than just a role guy for this offense. You're a huge piece to it.
So during that redshirt year, it's a lot of plays on scout team, and, going against Richie Haggerty every single day will definitely make you better. Went through a few practice jerseys that year, getting ripped. But, yeah, and then going the next year, the actual freshman year, first time playing, playing behind AJ, it's just, you learn a lot of things from scout team and all those practice reps that you took. And, it's just applying them for the first time in a game, and then this year, it's, you've already done those things in a game before. It's just, how can I do them better? So I'd say that's probably how the development has gone.
You guys as a tight end room have some really good personalities.
Yeah.
And, you look across the team, and there's not a lot of position groups that don't have personalities to begin with. But with Coach Griff leading the way with that group, what's that room like? Like, give Saluki Nation a bit of a perspective of how those meetings are, how you guys are on the field when you're interacting with each other. Like, what's that tight end room dynamic like?
So it's definitely a fun time in that room, especially with Coach Griff. He's a great leader. We all sort of have our nicknames for each other, which is kind of funny. But, when we're out there, it's like we try and keep it strictly business. There's a lot of things that we go over in the meeting room prior to practice that we know we have to implement that day. So, yeah, it's just a lot of like fun times in there for sure, but it's success. We're working towards success through the fun times.
There's so many things when it comes to the tight end position, Schwindy, that, what is a big part of the job are things that a lot of fans overlook. And to be honest, even at times media types can overlook too, because there are nitty-gritty details. What about the tight end position in terms of the nitty-gritty details that you guys really have to focus on, whether it's pass block schemes, run block schemes, whatever the case may be? What do you enjoy most about your position and those little details that you really get to dive into?
I like that we get the chance to do everything. I love going out and catching passes, running routes. I think that's probably what I'm best at, but I also love hitting people. And, I used to play basketball a lot, and I would get called for a lot of charges, but there's no charges in football. So that's just something. And then all the little details, it's just it's nice to just have a big thing that you got to get done, and whenever I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Whenever you're just going into those details, it's something you might only do once a game, but then that when that one time comes, then everything you got to do, be specific with what you're doing.
Let's go to Saturday's game at Austin Peay. Take us through just your first touchdown in that game, because what was so amazing to me was as soon as you caught it and you turned, there was nobody within a mile of you.
It was kind of surreal almost. I saw that they were blitzing, but I didn't know they were blitzing everybody. So I kind of thought I was going to get the ball pre-snap just because you could tell by their alignment that they were going to blitz. But once I caught it and I saw that the safeties had gone too, I was just go run.
Your tight end, I should say your touchdown was big because of that first possession in the third quarter, Schwindy. So you had the possession right before halftime to get you guys up going into the break. Then you come out and you start really well offensively. How important was that stretch in the game of didn't get off to the cleanest of starts, but you end the half strong, and then offensively you start the half really strong at Austin Peay?
Well, it's just like the start of a whole nother game, You always want to play it like it's 0-0 whenever you come out at the half, no matter what the score is. So, scoring on that first possession, it really helped us, open up the playbook a little bit, feel just a little more relaxed. I feel like at the beginning we were a little caught off guard, but, we worked through it. There was some adversity, but there's always going to be adversity.
You mentioned the adversity part. Building off of that, man, Schwindy, there are games where, especially in the fourth quarter, where there are opportunities you guys had of great field position and couldn't come up with points. And then you either can be amplified with some special teams mistakes too. And those games can somehow twirl a little bit out of hand, but it didn't. A big tip of the cap goes to the defense. What was it like to see those guys? I think it was 16 plays Austin Peay ran in the fourth quarter, went for a total of -8 yards.
Yeah, I love watching our defense play. You can just tell watching them that, they just play with an extreme passion for the game. And, I love seeing Bogle get out there and making plays, came in with him. So it's always nice seeing dudes from my class out there making plays because, you just came in with them. And you like to see everyone that you came in with succeed.
Those bonds that you build with guys like Bogle, when you really come up and you learn through some days where you're like, man, I want to get that opportunity. Or maybe you guys are on scout team. How does that make you guys really mold even closer as you go throughout your days here, knowing you have that shared experience?
People say if it's going to suck, it's good to suck. like what you're doing sucks, it's good to do it with some other people. So, just going through everything, with Coach Meade, he's a great coach, pushes us really hard. So going through everything with them, and it just builds a sense of brotherhood amongst us.
I remember looking at you for the first time last year, Schwindy, and I was like, this dude's a freaking machine. And when you came back this year, looked even more like a machine. Further into that a bit of how much work it takes to, one, work on, you got to get blessed with some physical physique, but it takes a lot of work in the weight room. And I know Meade Smith is a guy that you've already mentioned, and everybody mentions of what he does for your guys' development.
When I first got here, I couldn't do a pull-up, but Meade definitely has fixed that. I could do a bunch now. So, it's just little everyday things that you just have to keep remember, be conscious of. Little practices. Get in the training room, getting in the ice tub after practice, just keeping your body ready.
You're one of the more vocal tight ends in terms of a really good personality to chat with at practice. But for Saluki fans that don't have the chance to get to know you, tell them a little bit who Ryan Schwindeman is away from football when they don't see the big guy out on the football field.
I like to do a lot of stuff. I like to draw. I think that's really fun. I'm a really big soccer fan, actually. That happened recently. All my buddies in high school were soccer players because my high school was really good at soccer, and just kind of wanted to be in on the conversation with them a little bit. So especially since the World Cup happened, and I think it was 2022. Ever since then, I just haven't been able to get away from it.
Now, have you been able to talk soccer at all with Paul? Because Paul, obviously, long time soccer player.
During fall camp, there were quite a few times. There was a volleyball in the locker room, and you just have some downtime in fall camp, and we were kind of juggling it towards each other. Play a game of two touch, you call it. Yeah.
you mentioned you played basketball when you were in high school. What are some other sports that you kind of grew up with, kind of playing and getting experience with?
It was mainly football and basketball for sure. I didn't start playing tackle football until 6th grade. So, but I would still say basketball was probably my main sport until like my sophomore year of high school, and that was just when I realized, you know, kind of have the perfect body for a tight end. Like, kind of just my game. You know, in high school, I was a 6'4" power forward. You know, that's not exactly going to translate to college that well. So, yeah, it was just a lot of football and basketball growing up.
You know, now charges would not be a good thing in basketball, as you describe. I'm sure Coach Nagy, he loves guys with a lot of intensity. So, you know, Coach Hill, don't hate me for bringing this up, but, you know, maybe there could be like, you know, a practice or two that you could slide over. And, you know, I know DJ feels really confident, you know, in terms of his basketball ability at times too. Like, I'd like to see some of the football guys see what they could do on a basketball court.
Yeah, that would be really fun to practice with the team. But you know, I see some of the conditioning they do, and I just peer in there. And I sit next to one of the basketball guys, Jared, in one of my classes, and he came in one day and he was just drenched in sweat. And I was like, "What were y'all doing in there?" He was like, "Dude, it was like a whole hour of just straight conditioning." So. But yeah, it would definitely be fun to run a few with them.
There we go. We may have to get that set up. Schwindy, before we let you go, just big game this weekend. You know, one of the rare opportunities at Saluki Stadium where two top 15 teams are getting a chance to battle. You knew kind of stepping away, and you looked at the schedule coming into the year that this could be a possibility with Incarnate Word, but to now have the opportunity, you guys are coming off a win. But just to know that you're going up against a really good team as well, like that has to be a great opportunity, and finally getting back at home too this weekend.
Yeah, I'm very excited to play at home. You know, just getting back in Saluki Stadium, feeling that atmosphere, and then again, you know, it's just a big game, and those are the ones that you want to play for. We try and tack every game the same, you know, but this one definitely has a little extra meaning, just being the home opener.
Yeah, the home opener, being back at home. You've been on the road for 2 weeks. I know 1-1, which when you start the year, that's not ultimately the goal. But how do you guys feel just now getting through the first 2 weeks, Schwindy, in terms of just from an offensive perspective, really? Do you still feel like that optimism is extremely high of where it was probably about 3-4 weeks ago before we started this thing?
Absolutely. I think we all know that we haven't played or even scratched the surface of playing our best offensive football yet, and this weekend is just another opportunity to try and get there.
And we look forward to this weekend finally back at home. You know, after the first 2 on the road, for the next 5, we'll be here in Carbondale, which is nice, but don't look too far ahead. Got Incarnate Word first things first on Saturday night. Schwindy, really appreciate you taking some time coming on the show, and really excited to see you play yet again here on Saturday night.
I appreciate it, Luke. Always a pleasure.
Once again, that was Ryan Schwindeman. We're going to take a break here on the show. This is Inside Saluki Athletics, which is brought to you by and presented by our friends at Pagliai of Carbondale. Nate Griffin is still coming up here on the show, so don't go away. This is Saluki Football from Learfield.
I'm Emma.
I'm Addie. We're with Saluki Softball.
And this is Roomy Roulette. I just cook more.
Yeah. I've definitely gotten more into it, but like if I have to, like I feel like I ask her a lot of questions. I'm like, is this right? Is this what I'm supposed to do with this? So yeah,
It's balanced.
It's pretty easy. Yeah.
Not me.
Yeah, you're more
You
of a
sing
hummer.
more than
You're
me
a
anyway,
hummer.
yeah.
She likes to hum. Yeah, it's not
hummer.
good, but I'm gonna do it.
She will do it.
I'm gonna do it. Yeah. She's gonna be humming it.
Yeah. Oh. Emma just decorated our whole house for fall.
I didn't do it all myself. She helped too. I feel like Addie's gonna be like tasteful, and I'm gonna be like, oh, I see something I like. Let's put it out.
But she's good at finding like trinkets and things, and she can put them out and make them look really cute. And I am not good at that. Yeah.
We are polite. We're like, but she. It's fine.
Emma's like halfway there. She's halfway there. We're working on it. We got tripods in our house.
We do have. I know. I have a tripod. It's from Amazon, but
We're
it gets the
working
job
on
done.
it.
No,
She's
we are.
getting close.
That's. You know, you never know what'll
getting
happen. I'm gonna post my content, see what happens.
Oh, love yourself.
Yeah, true. No.
Follow her.
Austin Grace Emma.
Yeah, follow her on TikTok. More awkward. Yeah. It would take me a really long time to write this speech out. Emma could do it in probably 7 minutes. Yeah.
I feel like I can just kind of
Yeah. she
go
can
with the
wing it,
flow. Yeah,
And I can.
yeah. Addie's very organized and structured.
And my jokes would probably be very dry. So sometimes it's not. People don't understand that I'm joking.
We'd intentionally not. I feel like we kind of do that to you sometimes. She'll say something like everyone knows is funny, and we're just like,
Yeah.
just to make her feel more awkward.
And it works. It works.
Inside Saluki Athletics Coaches Show, which is brought to you by Pagliai of Carbondale. It's now time to welcome in our Olympic sport this week, which gets going again this weekend with the fall ball schedule. It is the head coach of Saluki Softball, fresh off an NCAA regional, a fantastic year, 44 wins. Coach Sewell joins us. Coach, appreciate the time. It's good to see you. How's the off season been? Which, I mean, I'm sure you've done nothing since you got back from Baton Rouge, right?
Yeah, I felt like we just got back. We were talking to Mary Jo and to some of the seniors, and they're like, man, we feel like we just got back, but it's ready. It's go time. So.
And it's not just because you got back at it took you forever to get back, right?
Yeah, we went on the planes, trains, and automobiles way home, but we made it, so it was a good trip.
Coach, great success obviously a year ago. Those are things you're always proud about and want to talk about. But once you get to this time of year, it's about turning the page, which is what exactly was our message when we had our first interview together last fall of moving on past that NCAA regional and say that's the expectation again. Is it easy to do it now that you've had, Jackie Liss on the team, others who have been around that, all right, it's time to turn the page? Or do you have to spend a lot of your time here in the fall of, look, this team is completely new. Like, it's a fresh slate. There's a lot more you got to prove starting now.
Yeah, I think we're going to try to address that from the top down. We're going to announce our captains today. I think that's a big step in sort of reinserting that leadership, is naming it, right? What is it? Who is it? How to operate in that sense. With so many newcomers, I think it's not just freshmen now, right? It's newcomers from other Division I programs. So a very interesting mix of players and personalities, but we've really dedicated the first 3.5 weeks to that point exactly. We just really want to make sure in these 20-hour weeks that we're sort of having a mini season as a preview to players. This is how we do it. This is what it's going to look like. But really letting that new leadership sort of take over and say, okay, this is the personality for this year. This is our expectations. We're going to do it sort of our way. And there's no real template for that. It may look a little different in terms of who is at the top, but their personality will really roll over. So,
Coach Sewell, it's one of those things in today's in college athletics, you can either complain about it or adapt in terms of how the transfer portal can be. Of course, you lost some really big pieces due to graduation as well for a program that you're so proud of developing players over time. You had many of those too. So when you looked at it, when you knew, okay, this is what we got to do, we got to go out and find these pieces, what was the best way that you just approached it and took it and said, all right, this is where we're at and this is what we got to do?
Yeah, I think we knew what we had coming in terms of the freshman class. We had taken care of what we thought were baseline needs. So that class is super athletic, can move around quite a bit. That we knew that pitching staff was going to be young in that class. So the first piece of the puzzle was a veteran pitcher, and we got that in Mac Newcomb, the 2023, I believe, SoCon Pitcher of the Year. Very veteran, very mature, understands what it's like to get up on the mound and be a horse, loves to pitch. So we're getting that back. It's going to look a little different. For one, it's right-handed, and but a very great repertoire of pitches, and is used to pitching Friday and Sunday, and then at times a midweek. And she can really lead that bullpen in terms of moving forward. Hey guys, this is what it looks like. And then I think the addition of Emily Williams from Morehead State, big-time hitter who had been an All-American alongside Jackie Liss in their first season, took the year off last year to redshirt. Huge addition to the middle of the lineup, I think. Is really going to help us in the power numbers that we needed, we'll get that instantly back. And the SIU E transfer and the Austin P transfer really shored up the outfield situation that we lost, with Kaler and Warwick. So it's nice to have those faces, but integrating them is key to it.
When you're at practice, do you ever go, where's Kaler? Where's
Yeah.
Warwick? They're late. They're never late.
Yeah, I could tell the first couple of weeks our players were like, oh,
Yeah.
we used to have a Riley, to
Yeah.
come into the locker room with a Riley or with a Warwick or with a Kaler and an Everly, those types. The personality sort of shifts in that sense. So we're all we begin the year sort of tiptoeing around each other personality-wise, and I can tell now that we've been training together.
You've been in college athletics for so long. That's normal. It's just kind of part of the process
Right.
you go throughout to it. But last year's team was very special in terms of those dynamics
Yep.
from a team chemistry standpoint. And not only did it show, I felt like, in interviewing your ladies last year, but your last 5 wins were all pretty much in dramatic fashion when
Right.
you either had to come from behind or by 2 runs or less. That translated. So what have you found are the biggest keys to setting it up for success? There's always only so much you can do because, big ownership is going to eventually fall down on those captains and the
Right.
leadership on your team.
Well, and I think we're always fighting the idea, right? Last year's team, and as much success as this program has had, those last seasons become then a baseline, right, for the next
Yeah.
team. And you're really trying to overcome. It's not going to be good enough at 44 wins. It's going to have to be 45 wins. So you start to see the pressure build in terms of what they want to accomplish. And I think the key to that, to managing that, is going to be a captain situation, a leadership situation, in terms of saying, hey, the first piece to this puzzle is the chemistry piece. The talent is always going to be there, but we don't have to do it exactly as last year's team, but we have to put the chemistry back together very quickly. And I feel like those older players are already making that a priority. You cannot prioritize talent because we've recruited to that. What you have to prioritize is, can we do this together? And then when it gets tough, not just when it's easy and we're run ruling somebody, when it's hot, when it's snowing, which we experienced last year when we're late, all those things, can we do it when it's really rough?
You're in the trenches with your team at all times throughout the year. So the reason I bring it up is because you understand where this question is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Look, the accolades and what Jackie Liss has accomplished on the field is amazing, and to a point where there's no question. I'm sure she had a lot of people in her ear to have the opportunity to potentially go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But her family name, et cetera, is so tied to the school, but yet that doesn't always guarantee that that individual is going to stay. I don't want to say how much your appreciation has grown for Jackie over the summer, because I don't think appreciation is the right word for me to use, but how much more impressed are you by her leadership, and not just her leadership, but her commitment to Southern Illinois in a day and age where commitment sometimes is really hard to find?
Yeah, and she spent this summer with playing sort of an international level of softball too, right? So those teams have SEC players and Big Ten players, and I know for a fact, she said, some were like, hey, if I call my coach, you probably have a roster spot. I don't know that fans appreciate how much respect I have for that kid and for that family. Now she's got some members on the football team too, so they're really integrated in Southern Illinois, and not just her aunt, but her dad and grandma are at every game. But I think I respect her so much because what she did last year is never good enough for her. And I think to stay home and take a team, I wish more players would do it. I think it would increase their just overall happiness with their career. Instead of going to a roster and sitting deep and having to earn time, and she had right away the opportunity to take a team, and she did exactly so far what she's wanted to do. But her ability to go home and get better is probably where I respect her the most. She still puts in an extra lifting time, extra hitting, extra work. She's in the business school, I think almost a 4.0. The level at which she operates is different, and I think she draws people to her, and I think she calls people up. So, and She's a great personality on the field. We were doing live at bats yesterday off of me, and I'm pretty bad at it. But I think she hit in 10 at bats. I think she hit 8 or 9 out. I think she missed once. So what she does to go and continue to get better and make a team better, and a lot of those players are divas in that sense, and she has none of that. She's very blue collar. Takes her teammates with her. Hey, let's go hit. Let's go throw. Let's take extra ground balls.
You can't undervalue that, Coach Sewell, when your best player is your hardest worker.
Yep.
And you can see all the numbers and everything. Man, Jackie Liss gets talked about a lot. There's a reason.
Yep.
It's like,
Yeah.
and it helps when, I'm sure not all the time, she's not the type of person either that's posting always on social media where you'll get on Instagram and she's in the cage on her IG story. Like,
Yep.
she just goes about her business, and I
Right.
think that really translates to the rest of the team.
Yeah, she does not. She'll probably call or text a teammate and say, "Hey, let's go," but that won't. Nobody will know. Even I think her teammates sometimes don't know. I heard her the other day ask Mead, "I need to lift on Mondays," and Mead was looking at her like, "Buddy, like you," and she was like, "No, I need an extra lift. This is the work that I have to put in." So I think I think the best athletes have an understanding that other athletes around them are going to up their game. And she could have settled a long time ago, but I think she knows in the back of her mind, somebody's always coming for me, and somebody's always coming for the Salukis. So we have to get better.
Let's talk about your coaching staff. Coach Watts gets added. What do you like about her that she brings to your program, and how she can really help the program?
First of all, she's a southerner. That twang, sometimes I'm like, I need you to repeat that. She's, from the Birmingham area, big southern personality. Already, I can tell, really gelling with her pitching staff and our catching staff, and just with our players in general. She's a player's coach in that sense, much like MJ. Never has a bad day, much like MJ, so they can really bounce off of each other. But it's been easy. It's been an easy transition. I think the players respect her. She has a nice balance of teaching and understanding, and then just almost like, we tease pitchers all the time, but it's like sometimes you got to be their therapist too,
Absolutely.
So, and I think they're just enjoying themselves with her, and she brings a lot of experience, a very interesting playing career. Probably could have and should have played at the SEC, but chose a smaller school and took him to a national championship.
At the end of the day, Coach Sewell, you got to do whatever you can to win the game.
Yep.
And that's exactly how you approached it with your pitching staff a year ago. As you look towards this year, no doubt you want that workhorse, which you believe you're going to have in
Right.
terms of the SoCon Pitcher of the Year coming into your program.
Yep.
But where do you feel depth within the pitching staff can be developed here in the fall to where you know that there can maybe be at times next year where you can experiment a little bit here
Yep.
and there, but also understanding what I don't think many fans get, if you want to stay in the at-large race
Yep.
for postseason, you can't fool around.
No.
So it's not like you have a huge margin for error that everybody wants to maybe make it out to be like you do.
Correct, yeah. And I think even last year, we knew coming into the Murray State series, we had clinched by Saturday, but Sunday they wanted to see us come in on a win streak. We could not lose even on Sunday, so we still had to go with Everly and Groff to get that game done. And those two were just absolutely gassed at that point. I think this year, I'm super impressed with Kiana McDowell. Came back a very different pitcher, can hit as well. And that's going to give, between Newcomb and McDowell, I think some time for the three freshmen to grow up very quickly. I think what you'll see is some of the younger pitching start with some of the older pitching close, and long close, really. But what that'll do is, the least scary part of the game is the beginning, right? Because you can always recover and run scored. So if you give up a little, 1 or 2, we can get that back offensively. So I think what you'll see in the beginning of the year is getting them innings, getting them on the mound, getting that adrenaline, that pregame warm-up up, and then they may go 1 time, 1.5 times through the lineup, and then we're going to come with a long close because we know what we're going to get, I think, with Newcomb. So
What are you most eager, maybe eager is not the right word, anticipation, whatever word you want to use, what are you most looking forward to see this team start playing here in the fall? Like, what are areas that you have your eye on of, I'm really intrigued to see where we're at in this part of our game and how we look.
I think what intrigues me the most is defensively. How are we going to put it together to make our best offense, because we have so many options and so many athletes. And we have a couple athletes that are learning some new positions. We have a big hole to fill at third base and a big hole to fill in left and right. And I'm super impressed with how that's going from just day one to right now. But I think it's going to be a fun puzzle. I think that's what we like about coaching, is how do you put it together in a way that you get your best offense and defense. And then you're probably going to see us switch late in the game and go very defensive once we get that long closer into the game. And I was never worried about offense, but we're even better than I thought. So I'm super excited about that.
What gives you the optimism offensively?
Just to see the pop and adding Malia Blomenkamp, Charlie Pursley, and especially Emily Williams. I think that's going to be really special. Some of those that I thought maybe might have some catching up to do really don't in the freshman class. Sarah Cook, a local product, I mean, can play almost all positions. So all of them have had their own successes so far. And I think, wow, it's like our job is going to be the hardest job, and that's get the right pieces into place at the right time.
Well, your fall schedule, as we mentioned, it starts this weekend against Johnny Logan on Sunday,
Right.
which what's great is about your fall schedule is you've done a great job of working around a busy, obviously, football Saturdays, but to also really try to get people to come out and watch you play. I know Saluki Nation does a great job supporting you in the fall, but those are games that you welcome as many people that want to come out and see you play.
Yeah, and I think, we're going to have some recruits around. We're going to have, showcasing this team for the first time. I've already gotten some, emails and texts like, who's going to pitch, who's going. I want to see the new freshmen, and I would welcome everybody to come out. It's going to be, hopefully we're going to get this fall weather and not get that summer weather we had a week ago when it was 100. I think the coaching staff was worse off of that. But, yeah, I would love, games are free. Show up, stay as long as you can, sit in the outfield, bring your pumpkin spice latte and your dog, and let's, stay for the doubleheader. So
Sunday, 1 o'clock, John A. Logan, just, of course, John A. here in town. Three Rivers will be September 20th. That's going to be on the Friday, and you'll continue on all the way through October 6th when you host Jefferson in a doubleheader as well. It's going to be a busy fall, I know, for you, Coach Sewell, but exciting as well. It's great to have you back on. Exciting. Now we got a sponsor for our segments. So when we get to the spring and get to do this on a weekly standpoint, it's going to be even more fun. Coach, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate you coming on.
thanks again.
Once again, that was head coach Jen Sewell. This is Inside Saluki Athletics, which is brought to you by Pagliai of Carbondale. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, we will close things out here on the show with more Saluki football conversation.
Williams with Benefield to his near right hip. Hezekiah in motion from right to far left. Just high snap, three-step drop. Williams middle field, hits Vincent Davis. He's got the 20, cutting up below the near numbers 10, down to the 5, sidestepping his way all the way down inside the 5-yard line. It will be 1st and goal for Southern Illinois. They're officially going to say he stepped out at the 9. 1 minute left in the opening quarter. It's 7-0 Austin Peay. Southern trying to answer on their third offensive drive of the game. Benefield cuts up left, makes a man miss, dives into the end zone, and he's in. Touchdown! Touchdown, Southern Illinois. Jalen Benefield with a rushing touchdown. It's his first rushing touchdown as a Saluki, and in his career, it's his 8th rushing touchdown. And pinning the PAT, it's 7-6 Austin Peay. 49 seconds left here in the opening quarter.
The man with the best smile on the team got his first ever rushing touchdown.
As well, 18 seconds. Man, Southern really taking their time. They do have one timeout left. It's 2nd down and 3. 13 seconds. Williams in the gun. He'll throw across the middle. Lewis has got it. Down to the 5, down to the 3, falls down with 6, and now Southern's got to burn that timeout.
Or they could just clock it.
They're going to burn the timeout. Lewis and Davis to the left. Now Davis in motion from left to right to join Schwindeman and Hezekiah. Williams, chest high snap, looking far side throw. 3 seconds left. He's got to throw it. 2, 1, end zone caught. Touchdown, Vincent Davis. He's got it right on the R, the last R in Governors in that red end zone. And the Salukis, as time expires, makes it 13-10, pinning the PAT.
Guys, he Mahomes that, man. It came from the hip.
Yeah, nice gain of 7 yards by Jalen. Has the rushing touchdown in the game.
Tempo again. Benefield far left tip. Williams bobbled the snap, throws, got Schwinneman wide open, 20-yard line, 10. He'll shrink it to the end zone. No penalty flags. Touchdown, SIU, and the first career score for Ryan Schwindeman with 11:18 to go. Makes it 20-10, pending the PAT. Right in the gun with Smith. Right, the tailback to the far left tip. Two receivers stacked to each side. Looking far side, heaves it far sideline. Nearly intercepted, and it is Iverson Brown. He leaped like Superman, extended both of his arms and his hands out, and somehow made the pick above the far numbers. And Southern has it, 1st and 10 inside the Austin Peay 16.
What an incredible athletic play to just dive at the last second and be able not only to catch the ball but stay in bounds.
Just high snap, looking to throw, middle of the field, rolls out near side. Mathis nearly got him, and Vogel comes in to clean it up. And the Salukis put the finishing touches on the Governors here on Saturday night in Clarksville.
What a great defensive series. Coach Poore, you saw all 4 plays down there.
Yeah, no, exactly kind of what we talked about. We played over the top, and you can see it in our front 7 guys. They were juiced. I mean, they were coming up the field and off the edges.
They didn't gain a positive yard in 4 plays.
Welcome back to Inside Saluki Athletics. We talked to one of the main members for the tight end room this year. Now let's talk to the leader of the tight end room, who, of course, has been here every year since Coach Nick Hill has been the head coach here in Carbondale. That is Nate Griffin, the tight ends coach. Coach Griff, always good to see you, brother. How are you doing after a nice little cool morning practice here on a little Tuesday?
Always great to see you. I'm doing great. You know, the morning practices have been like anything, an adjustment, but I think our guys, I like it. You get in, get your work done, have the afternoon to make adjustments, look at it, send information out to the guys. Technology now, you know, with everything, they could watch the film at home, text them out all your notes, that type of stuff. So it's been great.
The biggest difference of being able to go in the morning to what you said, it does free up your afternoon. In a weird way, though, how have you maybe seen your guys more now in your office than maybe how it was before when you would set up your practices in the early evening, kind of mid-afternoon range?
Correct. I think it's a balance of when they have their free time. You know, we're usually watching film, still game planning, doing that stuff, but the office is always open. You know, when we're finishing up, a guy might be in there, have some questions. You have more time to go over it with them individually, you know, more personal type of stuff like that. Whereas before is you had the afternoon for meetings, practice, installs, and that was it. You know, whereas now is these guys, when they get done with class, most of them are done later in the afternoon. We're usually wrapping up or close to it, so they'll shoot me a text, hey, I'm going to swing by. If I can't meet with them, they could watch the film right there. I have my notes for them. They could take a look at it, you know, but it's been, I think they enjoy it as well because you do. It's like normal life, and Coach Hill talked about. You get up, you got a job to do when you get outside of this in the real world, and you got to go to work, right? Same type of deal. You got to get up, you got to go to work, do your job, and then they have a little more time to knock out school, a little more free time. You know, as a player, I think they like it.
It's a common talking point whenever I get you guys on, and we've talked about it before, where you understand what you sign up for in terms of when you get into this industry, when you become a coach, in terms of the hours that put in and the time you are away from your family.
Absolutely.
But knowing with the new setup, too, Coach Hill does a tremendous job of basically open door policy for whenever your family wants to come around, and same with the other coaches. So I don't want to say that it's totally different because Coach Hill's always had that open door policy.
Correct.
But how has going in the mornings, maybe now where you're not necessarily in the office till 11, midnight, really extremely late, how that's even helped you seeing your own family?
No, it has for sure. I mean, your Sunday, Mondays, and even Tuesdays are still a little bit later, but, you know, you're getting Wednesday home earlier, Thursday you're home in the afternoon. You know, if you get home soon enough, you could go pick your kids up from school, that type of deal, but you get to mow the lawn, take care of all the stuff you usually don't, so I don't know how great no, I'm joking. You do. You feel more like you're able to go home and be a dad, be a husband, you know, as a coach, and still, you know, wear both hats, whereas before it was you were gone, you know.
Yeah. Well, it brought up how, Coach Griff, that you're one of the originals, the OGs of this staff with Coach Hill ever since he's been the head coach. Does it feel that long, even for you? I mean, when you think of all that you've been through together here in Carbondale?
It doesn't. I mean, football's it's a unique thing, and it's the same routine, same thing every year, but it's not. You know, every year is different. I think it is. It doesn't feel like it until you start talking about, hey, you remember back in 2016, and you got to jog your mind. It's like, and then I look at pictures of my kids, and, you know, Tommy and Maya were just little. You know, Tommy was a baby, and it's like they're teenagers, you know, they're growing up. But it still feels like I've only been here for a few years, and I think that's because I enjoy it. You know, the excitement, love this place, love the area, the community, love working for Coach Hill. You know, it's never gets boring.
I've asked you a similar question like this before. I know it's going to happen as this interview plays here this afternoon, is so many former players speak so highly of you and their relationship with you. I remember when we did the podcast before we went back to Idaho for you, just how many former players just interacted with me and just said, man, love Coach Griff, everything he's about. That, of course, just goes back to everything. One, about you, but just the culture you guys have here. Yeah. What is it that's so special about the rooms that you're able to build, whether it was the running back room when you started, now in the tight end room, to where what you've been able to take away from Coach Hill being under his leadership?
You know, one, I think it is the guys you bring in, you know, first and foremost is the people you're bringing in. And then two, it's like anything else, and Coach Hill always talks about, it's about building the relationships. We all played. Football doesn't last forever. You know, a big thing as a coach and everything is I'm the way I am because of the people in my life who impacted me, who influenced me, who coached me. You know, we've talked about it before. Ryan's dad was my high school coach, and the way he was with me, and that's how I learned. That's how, you know, it just played such a big part. I was fortunate enough to have, obviously, great parents, great coaches at a young age, and I was impacted by those guys in the way they were. And I coach a lot like I was coached, you know, and to me it comes back to is I want them to have the most success they can on the field. That's why we do it. But more importantly, I want them to be able to go be successful men, successful husbands, fathers. And that's more than just X's and O's. That's like truly caring about these guys. You know, once they're off the field, it's not just like, all right, I'm done with you. It's whatever questions you have, life talks, anything. Yeah. I'm in your, you know, it's hard because there's so many or whatever, but I hope they all know is I will do anything for them still if they're not on the team. And whether that's just a phone call, just a talk, whatever I can, if I can help, I will. You know, and that's always been mine and Amy's role. You know, that's just people did that for us, so we're going to do it for them.
What's the best part about not just your relationship with them, but it's really your players that get to know your family and really get to know your kids?
No
and
doubt.
like what about that dynamic is neat for you to see is when your kids are able to be a part of it and get to know the guys you coach?
You know, like you said, what we do is hard, and for the players it's hard. You know, and you want to instill that toughness in your kids at a young age of, you know, life's not easy, right? You got to keep fighting. You got to have dreams, but you got to work for it. And they get sick of me saying it to them, my kids, right? Personally, they're like, oh, Dad, whatever. But when they come up here, they see it for real life. Like, these guys all had goals, all had dreams. They work hard. They practice. They lift. They go to class, all this stuff, you know. So and they grow attached to them because you know, I got home late last night. My wife was up in Springfield. My son had a soccer tournament, but my daughter was still home. You know, our in-laws were there as well, so she was with them. But she was still up telling me all about the game. She's like the biggest fan, win, lose, or draw. She's my biggest critic, telling me all that type of stuff. But it is, and they still, when they see the players, they know them all. You know, it is a part of your family, and it's just neat seeing them interact with them.
This is Inside Saluki Athletics, which is brought to you by Pagliai of Carbondale. We got Coach Nate Griffin of the tight end room. We talked to Schwindy earlier in the show. Let's get to the game over the weekend. I think back to the Austin Peay game last year for Schwindy, and he got what looked like his first touchdown, and then a penalty flag was thrown on the play. It got called back, and it was one of those things as the year went along for him, it just felt like just some tough times for him where it looked like he had a big play. Unfortunately, ball would pop out. Yeah. And it was just like when we all saw the potential for him.
Oh, yeah.
What was it like for you on Saturday to see him, one, catch that football, And 2, when he turned around, there was nobody within a mile of him, and he was finally going to get that first career touchdown off his checking list.
Yeah, no, it was unbelievable and probably not going to be that easy again. But it's the biggest thing, and I've talked with Ryan about this and all the other guys, is there's so many things that have to happen for us to have that opportunity, right? Like anything else, you just have to do your job. O-line's got to do theirs. Quarterback, we may not be the first progression. We may not be get the ball thrown to us, but it all starts with, like, you got to believe it's coming to you, and eventually it will. And that belief is going to force you to keep working all the routes, right? Routes on air, practice, all that type of stuff. And when you get that opportunity, you do the most with it. But happy for him. It's not surprised. That's the expectation. That's the standard for him to be a weapon for us. And he can do it. He's done it. And, when it happens on game day, I'm not shocked. Everybody else might be excited, whatever, but I see him do it every day.
Is that one of the parts with the program that I know today's college football is much different than even when you played in terms of just roster dynamic and how everything goes? But there are still a lot of guys like Schwindy on this roster. There's many I can name that redshirted, that then probably had a year, I don't want to say a total of a year of acclimation, but a year where they started to have a bigger role. And then all of a sudden now they're in a massive role where you really get to see that progression a ton still at our level and within your team. That's kind of what makes really this group special is you got a lot of guys like that.
It does. I mean, it's like anything else. It's consistency, right? Having the same guys working on the same things constantly, you're going to get better at the more you do it, right? And so it's all part of it. In the climate of college football now, it's so the dynamics, you really don't know what's going to happen. But you still, as a coach, preach the same thing. It's not going to happen right now, but you got to keep working for it because eventually it will, right? And so we are fortunate enough to have these guys and them go through it.
2 games so far, Coach Griff. Best thing you feel as an offensive unit you guys have accomplished so far through 2 games?
I just think it's their attitude. We don't panic. Even on the sideline, they talking to the guys. I'm up in the box, talking to them on the headset. There's never been a sense of panic or anger, or they seem calm, cool, collected. They know what they need to do, and that's the only way to get it done is you can't, and I always talk about we never hit the panic button, right? You're always in it. You're always in the fight. You keep going no matter what, and so their attitudes have been phenomenal. It's going to happen. Offenses sometimes take a little bit to click, right? We all know what it is, rhythm, trust, and being on the same page. We're going to get there, and I think the only way you do is if you believe it and you have the attitude, and we haven't flinched. So, and that's the expectation is we got to keep pushing until it happens sooner than later.
You talked about being in the booth. One of the areas, of course, this year that's been added is tablets on the sideline, where before where you would try to communicate to guys saying, hey, this is the look you got here. This is what you need to do next time. A lot of it just had to be through the phone or some sort of communication on a headset. Now they can physically see it. What's the biggest addition and help to that in terms of you relaying from up top to your guys on the field that obviously you haven't had till this year?
And previously, I'm a doodler, so I draw everything up. No, I'm joking. But it's just communication. It clears everything up because they might see it one way, you saw it another way on the box. You're trying to explain it to them. They're like they don't agree or they don't really understand, where now it's like, oh, coach, yep, I see it, I got it. Now you got to be specific about what you're touching on because you don't have a whole lot of time. You don't want to cloud their mind with a whole lot of information. It's got to be quick, clear, concise. You know what you want to talk about. It may not be every play. It might just be like, hey, a different look, or this is where you're at. Just little pointers because you still don't want them overthinking. But it just helps clean up the communication, any adjustments, that type of thing.
Well, you brought up doodling. Coach Poor told me that you're not a doodler. You're an artist, is what he described you as. He said you would design some playbook covers back in the day, still for the teams throughout the years. And he's like, Griff's good now. He's like, Griff's talented. And the reason we brought it because Schwindy says he's a little bit of a drawer as well.
Ryan is.
Is that just something that just formed like naturally for you? Is it something you kind of always enjoy doing?
My brother is an artist. Like he is naturally like. He can do it. Now, he doesn't do it all the time, but like when he was young, he can draw, still can. I don't know. It's just something I've always been. I was a big comic book guy. That was when I was young, wanted to grow up, be a comic book artist type of deal. Not an artist, a doodler, so nothing's like ever getting published or putting it out there, but it's like anything else. It's a way you just free my mind and relax, and I like creating things. That's kind of just my personality, I guess.
What are the big? What's one of your favorite things that you do like to draw or doodle? Is it kind of one of those like free ranging things that kind of goes over expands a lot of different
I don't think
areas?
you want to know because it's like I said, comic books. It's like superheroes, like werewolves, like monsters type of stuff. You know, intimidating things. Not
now. Have you ever drawn yourself as a monster or
back in the day in arts class when you had to do all those? Right. I'm pretty sure those looked like garbage, but.
We'll have to get. I wish we had enough time where I could pull those and show them to.
Maybe I'll show you some of my work.
There you
someday.
go.
I'll text you some. And you know, getting into like graphic design, I joke around so when I was younger, me and my buddies we made T-shirts, our own T-shirts, got into silk screening. You know, when we first got married, I actually had I knew how to do it, make the screens, all the stuff on it, how to burn the image onto it, type of stuff, and I would do that in the basement. You know, and so. I always joke around. I like doing that stuff, and someday, you know, maybe I'll be a graphic designer or something like that.
You know, football coach, those working out for you. So I think your main gig's great.
I'm trying,
but it does sound like you got something.
You got to be diverse, right?
You
got to be
to
able to do it all, right? You don't want to be locked into one thing. The more you can do, the better. Right?
Absolutely. I think we'll have to have doodle time with Nate Griffin. Is what we've already started. Hey, we're adding these shows.
There you go.
You know, I think that's something we need to add.
Might be something. Schwindy might be our first
yes,
guest, right?
I think that'd be perfect. Just you and Schwindy, just
Bob Ross, you know, type of stuff. There you
absolutely.
Go.
I think that's what we need to get done. Griff, before I let you go, this weekend, of course, massive opportunity. You know, I tweeted out earlier this week, just doing research. This will be the first time that Southern has hosted a non-conference opponent where both teams have been ranked in the top 15 at the same time, which just shows you, one, the credibility of what Incarnate Word has done in recent memory.
Absolutely.
That's a program that's not incredibly old in terms of their Division I history, but it's not taking them long to be relevant in FCS football.
Correct.
That's what you want, right? I mean, a non-conference game, it's your home opener, and you know you're going up against a high-caliber opponent in Incarnate Word.
There's no doubt. I mean, we know who they are. We played them last year or
2 years ago
in the result. So, and they're still good. I mean, they are dangerous. So, it's our conference. It just started a little bit sooner with these guys we've been matched up with, you know, and you are correct. That's why you play the game. You want these, you know, and specifically the nice thing is we're at home. But it's going to be a fight for sure.
Briefly, before we let you go, is, you know, we do close out the show with you, so we save the best for last, you know, Coach Griff, just to make sure you know that. But defensively, everyone talks about their offense and their tempo, but what does stand about their defense? What are some of their strengths that are going to be a really big challenge for you?
They're aggressive. They're strong. They're physical. They fly around, you know. Like I told the tight ends today, is like they will get after you if you let them. I mean, they don't back down from anything, and obviously they know how to compete with going up against their offense all the time, so they're going to stay in it and fight. But you look at them, they'll line up and they'll go at you.
And, of course, South Dakota State last weekend, we know what South Dakota State brings offensively, and that was a very competitive game all the way to the very end.
Absolutely, and that's how it is. You know, we talk to them all the time, is you respect the opponent, but at the same time it's like, it is going to be a fight no matter who it is. If you go in with the other mindset, it's over with for you, right? That's bad, but it's going to be a good game.
Coach Griff, appreciate the time.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to Saturday night. Always. Doodle time with Coach Griff next week. We're going to get that time set.
There we go.
That was Nate Griffin, the tight ends coach for Saluki Football. Again, big thank you to Jen Sewell, who joined us here during the hour, head coach Nick Hill, Ryan Schwindeman, and our guest here to close it out, Nate Griffin. This has been Inside Saluki Athletics, brought to you by Pagliai of Carbondale. We will talk to you this weekend. Kickoff at Saluki Stadium will be 6 o'clock. We'll see you on Saturday night, Saluki Nation.
This has been Inside Saluki Athletics, presented by Pagliai of Carbondale. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Saluki Sports Network.